Not. And now this. I didn't get that on camera. Okay, that was caught live.
She's gonna cry. She's gonna cry.
Here we go. We are now looking at more colonies. You have in your brain this passive knowledge from years and years of learning about the colonies, that there were 13 colonies and that all 13 became states. Thanks. That all 13 became states. And that is accurate, but it is also inaccurate. Colonies that started off as one thing merged with other colonies to become a new colony. Like, where's the state called Massachusetts Bay? What state is that? Where's the state called Plymouth? Right? So you should know that when we study some of these colonies, at later points, they would merge with other colonies, split with other colonies. There was once a colony called Carolina, one colony. Obviously, it's split into North and South Carolina. Okay, so now we are looking at something called the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which is this area that today we would call Massachusetts, and this area that today we would call Maine. It was one colony, Massachusetts Bay Colony. But meanwhile, there's also a colony called Plymouth. That's another colony. We looked at that one already. Okay.
Massachusetts Bay was
a colony. Massachusetts Bay was a colony. It was a religious colony. And once again, wearing the awesome accordion neck thing is our favorite governor. His name is John Winthrop, and he was sort of a fanatic, a religious fanatic. Now, let's give him a pass in a way. The prevailing thought at the time was something that he sort of fit in. Now, do we have fanatics today? Of course we do. Most, I don't know, how do I say this? A lot of people aren't fanatics. A lot of people aren't off the deep end with whatever point of view that they have. A lot of us are reasonable people, and you believe in your thing, and I'll believe in my thing. Kumbaya, we'll get along just fine. But there are areas of the world where you better toe the line. You better have the same view that I have. And Massachusetts Bay was one of those. This is a Puritan colony. The Puritans, remember them? They were the group that broke off from the group that broke off from the group. Yes?
Yep.
They're the group that broke off from the group that broke off from the group. Catholics, the Anglicans separated, the Puritans separated. They were the separatists. Very good. Okay. And you'll notice that he's the first governor, that it was a religious community, and that your individual needs are subservient to the needs of the community. And any of you take sociology? We've taken sociology. So do you remember that unit on religion where we said that you'll head off for the hills and that we usually work together, right? And a lot of times you go off into this area called Weirdville. That's where you, no, wait a minute now. Since we're live on tape, the Mormons would actually more likely be called a sect that has sort of been accepted today as normal by a lot of people. Now, of course, and there are some people that think, no, the Mormons are weird. But there are people that say the Jews are weird, and there are people that say Catholics are weird, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I would say that, thanks in large part to Mitt Romney, who a number of years ago ran for president, Mormon, that people view Mormons today as just another religious group. Okay. Anyway, this is the story about the Massachusetts Bay Colony. What did they have? And I think what you'll notice as we go through this, that there were some things that we should look at and say, hey, that's pretty cool. Look at that. That seems to be more rights than were enjoyed in Europe. And then we're going to get to some other points where you're going to say like, look at that. That seems not tolerant at all. How would you judge this one? Every male could vote in the policy of the colony. Now, would you see that as progress? Yeah, it is progress. Now, I would say there are two big indicators from that piece of note up there where you today would look and say, that's not progress at all. Just look at the wording in blue. And I'm suggesting to you that we today would look and say that there are two things up there that we as Americans today, most of us, would look and say, any idea? What's one?
Free.
What?
Free men. Free.
No. Yeah, right. Oh, God, there are three. There are three. Very good. All right. Free indicates that at the time there were not free men.
Free men.
Men free, men church. I mean, what's left? All's good. All right, right? And the word in. Okay, yeah, very good. At the time there were slaves. This is saying free men. At the time there were women. There still are today. But only men got to vote. And then look, within the realm that they're voting is within the religious community, because you better be Puritan. That's the only option. So we today would say, well, all men are free. So saying all free men is redundant. That's like saying oxygen, air. I breathe air oxygen. Yep. So does everyone else, right? It's redundant, okay? It's like the American Dodgeball Association of America. Yeah, you said that already. The American Dodgeball Association of America. Did you ever notice that? Dodgeball? You know, if you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball. So there you go. Okay. Next one. I am going to once again, broken record time, I am once again going to dispel the myth that we are a democracy. No, we are not a democracy. And we're also not a democracy. Now, first of all, we're not a democracy. And that was a mess up on my part. I don't know what a democracy is. We are not a democracy. No, we're not. We are a constitutional republic. We choose this is today. We choose our leaders. But even then, our leaders do not simply get to do whatever they want and say, well, the will of the majority. Nope, there's this annoying thing called the Constitution, which says you can't do some things, even if most of you want to. I mean, think about this. Let's say that they passed a law. Let's say that Congress passes a law that everyone will wear Green Bay colors on Mondays. Okay? It would take exactly 5 people in a nation of about 350 million. You pick the right 5 people, and that ain't happening. Does anyone know who these 5 people are? Every single other person in the nation could say, yep, that's exactly what we're doing. And if these 5 people say, no, it ain't happening. I don't need their names. I need, who are these people? They're dead. They're still dead.
Oh, I thought
Say
you
it
meant
again.
like those two. I thought you meant like that was a hint.
You thought? Am I insane? Or did the words I think come out of your mouth? When I found you, you were Princess Bride. What's wrong with you? We not know who I'm talking about? How many people are on the Supreme Court?
9.
What's a majority of 9?
Oh, 5.
4.
I said judiciary.
You pick the 5 right people on the Supreme Court, and they say you cannot force people to wear certain colors that violates the First Amendment right of free speech. Those 5, 349,999,995 say, yeah, green and gold. And these 5 say, no, the answer is no. 5 versus that other number I just said. Okay, that's an example of protecting the majority mob, protecting the minority from the majority, protecting the minority from the majority. That's what we have today. We have a constitutional republic. And that stems from this belief that you can't let the sheep run the farm. You can't let the mob rule. I'll give you an example. In my right hand, I have candidate Candy. Vote for me, Candy. Candy, Candy, Candy. What's for breakfast? Candy. What's for lunch?
Candy.
And what's for dessert?
Candy.
And dinner? And second dinner? And then we have candidate Broccoli. vote for me, broccoli, people, it's good for you. Now, what we do is we educate all of you. We put you in public schools. We educate the American population so that when you go into the voting booth, you vote wisely. You vote wisely. How many of you would vote for candidate Kendi? You're a bunch of liars. You are liars.
No,
You really would vote for candidate broccoli.
I would vote for
Broccoli's
broccoli
like
because
the
I.
best.
I'm very impressed. What usually lately in American history happens is candidate A says, I'll cut your taxes, but won't cut spending. Vote for me, candidate Kendi. Your taxes will go down, but government services won't go down at all. Kendi. And then you got this guy. Vote for me. I will cut spending. You will get less government services. I will increase taxes because we have this enormous debt. What chance does candidate broccoli have? Vote for me. I'll make things worse. But it's good for you. It's good for you. It's broccoli. And that's the problem with democracy. We don't vote for broccoli. We vote for candy. And they recognized that at the time. So they said, sorry, we can't just go with what we want to do. Democracy is dangerous. We need to choose wise leaders who will give us broccoli, not candy. Okay? And that has continued. You'll notice also that taxes were collected and they went straight to the Puritan church. Now, can that happen today? Any of you St. Annie's? St. Annie's? We have a St. Annie in here. Does any taxpayer money go to St. Anne's? And you're on. You're on. She said no, by the way, people live. Yes, it does. Tax money goes for your science classes and your math classes and your English classes and your history classes, but not the religion class. That's privately funded. Otherwise, it goes to everything else. Okay, so you're not exactly right, but taxes going to the Puritan church, that just can't happen today. It just can't happen. And then finally, what is going to lead to the leaving by some people from this pretty extreme colony is a practice called interrogation. Now, if I were to throw out some terms today, I'm synthesizing right now. If I were to throw out some terms, what comes to mind when I say the word interrogation or advanced interrogation techniques?
Torture.
Torture, very good. Right? Batman asking the Joker, where is he? Right? And Commissioner Gordon's trying to get in, but Batman has wisely lodged the chair. You know what I'm talking about. Where is he? Beats the snot out of the Joker, right? Batman, right? Interrogation of people in the colony to make sure that you were up to snuff as far as Puritan religious beliefs. And if you weren't, out the door you go. You are banished. Get out of this colony. You don't fit here. This is very common, by the way, in sects and cults today. If you don't adhere to the views of the group, out you go. You are out of here. You're ostracized, right? We're looking at a colony that in many ways was a cult. It was a cult colony, right? Okay. Questions here? Rock on. So let's tell the story about a couple of the people that were kicked out. One more. As I left the common room, I promised them that I would make noise loud enough to help them out, to help them out. So there you go. Why are we looking at the Quaker Oats guy? This is a real person. Unlike the Pillsbury Doughboy, who's fiction, or Aunt Jemima, who may have been based on a real person. Kind of doubt it. Aunt Jemima, delicious syrup. Delicious syrup. The bottle is shaped in the form of a person, right? She's like crossing her arms. Syrup pours out of her head. Mrs. Butterworth, another. That's a very good example. Very good. Okay. Those I don't know this for sure. I think they're all fiction.
Yeah.
This is real. This is William Penn. William Penn founded the colony called Pennsylvania. Sylvania means land of. Land of Penn. Transylvania, land of Dracula.
Example.
Wow.
Transylvania,
More you know.
Sylvania, land of. Okay. He was a person that lived in this colony. And he was like, no, you got it wrong. Your views are extreme. So he moves, he leaves. And so he founded this different group. So look at this. This is the group that split from the group, that split from the group, that split from the group.
Can you please list the names of the groups?
Catholic.
I'm trying to get-
Right? The
Yeah.
Catholics. And then the Anglicans broke from them. And then the separatists, pilgrims, broke from them. And then the Quakers broke from them.
Wait, the Quakers broke from the.
Puritans. Very good. Okay. And the Quakers had a series of, any religion, one of the characteristics of what makes a religion is ceremony. And the Quaker ceremony is when you would be filled with the Spirit of the Lord and you would literally quake. You would quake with the Spirit of the Lord. It filled you. There was another group that lived in Indiana. They were the Shakers. And they also had ceremony. They shaked with the Spirit of the Lord. They shaked with the Spirit of the Lord. So, by the way, test question. I will videotape myself quaking and shaking, and you will have to look and correctly identify, was I quaking or shaking?
Demonstrate.
Yes, I will demonstrate. All right, watch. Right now, I am quaking.
Okay.
Now I am shaking. Notice the difference.
You're rising.
Okay, can you tell the difference? Ready? Quaking or shaking?
Shaking.
No, quaking. Okay, your turn. Quaking or shaking? Which one?
Quaking.
No, shaking. Your turn. Ready?
Oh God, no, you're quaking.
No, shaking.
That's
Oh my
shaking
goodness,
because
you guys are
it's
awful.
up, but
All right, you think you know. Ready? Here we go. Quaking or shaking?
Wait,
No, shaking.
what?
I think you just kidding.
You got it?
There's no system.
You
to
think
it.
I'm just saying the opposite?
You're pulling on
All right, let's watch.
No,
Okay,
that's what
can you get it?
Neither, because that's stupid.
No, that's wrong.
You were
Ready?
shaking that time. Shaking.
Yes,
That was my turn.
you got it.
I'm so sorry.
All right, so just know.
What's the difference?
Okay.
I didn't see one.
It's obvious. Learn. Okay, here we go.
Well, it's not.
The Quakers were persecuted. You'll notice that the Puritans, who were picked on when they were over there in Europe, are now the pickers.
What?
They were bullied over there, and now they're the bullies over here.
Yeah, you should.
And their victims are the Quakers, just like they were the victims of the Anglicans. But now they're in charge. When you're in charge, you better do it my way. And I'm not in charge over here, but now I'm in charge here. You Quakers are not towing the line, and the Quakers say, we're out of here. We'll start our own colony, Pennsylvania. Okay. Now, this last bullet that you may or may not have written down is just sort of an interesting thing that happens. You'll notice only 12 years later, we declare independence. So this is pretty close to the United States becoming a thing. Okay? And the interesting thing that you'll note here is this. Somewhere between yesterday and today, there was a transformation. Bug's life.
Oh.
Oh.
When did they become Americans? You don't declare independence unless you see yourself as different from the group you're separating from. When did that happen?
After common sense.
Well, that certainly helped, but well before that. Okay, imagine NASA sends people to the moon and they start a colony, and it's Americans. The people who fly to the moon, they're Americans. But let's say the colony allows for marriage and having children. Okay, now the kids, maybe they'd see themselves as Americans too, because after all, their parents were actually from America. They might see it, but keep going generation after generation. At some point, those people on the moon are going to say, I don't even know what America is. I've never been there. I'm not American. I'm a Moonie. Right? Think of yourselves. How many of you are German? Any Germans in here? Well, why don't you speak German?
Sorry.
Right? Because yes, you're German as far as ancestry is concerned, but you're not. You're American. Right? You have no necessarily any real ties to Germany. It's a fine place. They've got beautiful castles. They had a bad stretch there. But, okay. Same thing here. At some point, these people that lived in the colonies stopped calling themselves English and British and started calling themselves Americans. And what we will do later on is look at when did that happen? How did that happen? You're right, Thomas Paine certainly had a big role in that. Anyway, the 12 years prior to the Declaration of Independence, there was a group that called themselves the Paxton Boys. And they didn't really like the Quakers. And so what they did was they led this huge protest because they felt that the Quakers were too nice to the Indians, because Pennsylvania was tolerant of Indians. They're people too. Okay. Just notice the pattern. There's a massive demonstration going on. This is something that's rich in American history. Group of people, they don't like a policy, so they march. They walk through the streets. Later on in this class, we'll look at the Selma marches. Selma is where Martin Luther King led a march across this one bridge. And on the other side of the bridge were a bunch of white boys with their clubs waiting to beat the snot out of any black guy that crossed. And they did. They beat them just with the bats, right? Some of them had nails pounded into the bats, and they beat the snot out of them. And what made it amazing was that it was broadcast live. There were television crews that broadcast it. And that's a big moment in civil rights, because it's one thing to read about it. It's another thing to watch it live. So huge impact. Okay. Long, rich history. I believe this is the first time we've seen something like this. Okay, so here's one example of a group that was not welcome in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and they flee. Here's the second group. The person here that is being surrounded by guards, she's got several strikes against her. What's the biggest strike against her? Female. How dare you be a female? And her other problem was she was pretty smart. A smart female? No, it will not do. It will not do. She had the audacity to challenge the thought of the Puritans and their teaching about this thing called predestination. Remember predestination? It's already been determined. Your future in life, it's already been determined. And she said, what a pile of crap. That's a bunch of baloney. You're questioning the conclusions of this group? No. Tis will not do. This will not do. So she was arrested. She was put on trial, and she held her own. She quoted Bible verse after Bible verse, and they realized, oh, this one's smart. Very dangerous. Female. Smart. Time to go. They kicked her out. She left. She went to Rhode Island, and there she was killed by a group of Indians. They didn't like her either. But again, another example of someone kicked out because of differences of opinion. And our third group, the man who founded Rhode Island, Roger Williams. Once again, he lived in Massachusetts Bay, but he disagreed with the policy of the hostility that the colony had toward Indians. He actually said, why don't we just live with them? What's wrong with them? So he was out of Dodge, banished. It says here, no religious oaths. The Massachusetts Bay Colony demanded an oath of loyalty. And he had a problem with that. This is a little weird. You're pledging loyalty, allegiance. That's a little weird. I mean, you ever think about, and this is America, but think what you want. And I am not questioning if this is right or wrong. I'm simply posing the question that every day you pledge loyalty to a piece of cloth. You pledge allegiance to the flag. Whatever. Okay. Questions here? Here we go. Last slide. Other colonies that were started. Other colonies that were started. So Connecticut, which is right in this area, right by the Massachusetts Bay Colony, the city of Hartford, which is of course today the capital of Connecticut, founded in 1635. Hartford is older than Connecticut, which is actually kind of common actually. Stillwater is older than Minnesota. Cities are oftentimes older than the state, and that makes sense. You can't become a state until there are a certain number of people within your borders. So of course you have to have cities before you have a state. And you'll notice that it was founded by the English and the Dutch. What they did was they wrote a document. Here's the document. It's called the Fundamental Order. That was their governing document. That was their constitution. And in that document, they said, we rule us. We rule us. Not the king rules us. We rule us. Us rule us. A few more. The colony called Maine, which would, sort of like Poland, which would at times disappear from maps and then suddenly reappear and then disappear. And I think it's there again. Maine's I think Poland's a thing again. Yes?
Didn't they blame Maine on the Spain to go to war with them?
The Maine. Yes, a boat. Yeah, not Maine.
The Maine.
The Maine, a boat. Yes, you're right. You're exactly right. Oh, we'll get there. That's another interesting story. The man responsible for the founding of Maine, Sir Fernando Jorge. New Hampshire, which is of course north of the Massachusetts Bay Colony in Plymouth. New Hampshire. Say New Hampshire. Okay, fine. And again, you'll see sometimes it's there, and then sometimes it gets absorbed and it disappears. And I think New Hampshire is a thing again, like today. Is New Hampshire a state? New Hampshire is a state. Yes, it's a state. So you'll see here absorbed by the Massachusetts Bay Colony, 1631. So Massachusetts Bay becomes not only what is today the state of Massachusetts, but also this whole thing. By the way, Maine disappeared to become part of this thing called Massachusetts. And then later on, they'd split it. And we'll get it. Last note, which is today the smallest state in the Union. Although interestingly enough, not the smallest by population. It's a teeny state, but more people live there than Wyoming. Number 50 as far as state populations. Nobody lives in Wyoming. Well, that's not true. Somebody lives in Wyoming, but not a whole lot.
Where is it? It's in the middle.
Wyoming?
Yeah.
Wyoming is north of Colorado.
Yeah, so it's like basically the middle /
Yeah.
west.
Yeah, it's kind of,
Not Midwest, but
no, it's not Midwest. But
middle of the
it's
state.
considered. Yeah.
Great.
Look at how tolerant Mr. Williams was as far as the founding of this. You could even be a Jew. Jews were welcome? That is incredibly rare. Catholics were welcome? Catholics? Those are the Italians and the Spanish and the French. You're welcoming them? Yeah. Very tolerant. Today we would look and say, well, isn't that the way it should be? But back then, rad. This is pretty rad. No church taxes. When I showed you that previous slide, taxes went directly to the Puritan church. Not true here. There are no church taxes. Universal suffrage. Suffrage means right to vote. As long as you're a man. Females, you get to join this little story right around 1920. So only about 300 years later. So
Have you seen the video of the guy, like with the clipboard, going around asking women if they are for or against women's suffrage?
and they probably think that you're saying like women's suffering.
Yeah, like they don't know what suffrage is.
Yeah, no, I
And they're
haven't.
like, no, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But
Oh,
it's
awful.
Women's suffrage is just bad.
Yeah, because they're not very intelligent. They don't know their history vocab.
That's it, as far as note taking is concerned. We need to attack and finish the remaining documents. So you need to put that out on your desk. I believe we are on the last three, right?
I don't know.
Schweikert and Allen's view of the differences in culture and who is the superior culture. Now, I'm gonna have a mini essay here. Stand right next to me, please. Okay, and we're gonna have write a mini essay about why I am superior to him. Here we go. I could say like, well, I'm obviously superior to him because I am physically the more imposing character. And now I'm going to prove it. I'm taller than him. Now I'm going to prove that same thing a slightly different way. He's shorter than me. You'll notice that that's two different pieces of evidence that basically argue the same thing. You may say. Schweikert and Allen are going to make an argument. You know where I'm going?
Yeah.
Very good. They're going to make an argument about which culture is superior between the Europeans, the Spanish, and the natives, the Aztec. And there's two ways to do that.
By narking on the other one and making yourself look good.
Very good. You can either praise one or criticize the other. Okay, you're proving the same thing. I would say that the first two of the three documents are making the same argument. If you like these documents, my recommendation is you pick one and then use the other one as historical evidence. Okay, so let me read this, and then you tell me which one's going on. What's going on? Schweikert and Allen, page 5, the first one. The Aztecs had established a brutal regime that oppressed other natives of the region, capturing large numbers of them for ritual sacrifices in which Aztec priests cut out the beating hearts of living victims. Such barbarity enabled the Spanish to easily enlist other tribes in their effort to defeat the Aztecs. Which culture is superior between the Europeans and the natives? The Europeans. Why? Yeah, because of how awful the Aztec were. The Europeans are better because the Aztec are awful. They're cruel. They cut out beating hearts. The Europeans didn't do that. I mean, yeah, I don't know if you ever thought about this, but human sacrifice ended with Spanish rule. Stop it. Now, did they execute people? Of course, but that's different. That's justice. Human sacrifice is sacrificing bodies to the gods.
Wait, so
Stop.
this number 19 one, is that praising themselves? Which one is it doing?
Are we talking about the right one?
Yeah. That
It's saying the Europeans are superior because the Aztec were awful,
one.
right? Okay, now let's look at the next one, which is making the exact same argument. It was sacrifice, not science, that defined Aztec society, whose pyramids, after all, were execution sites. They were execution sites. A 4-day sacrifice in 1487 by the Aztec king, whatever that is, involved the butchery of 80,400 prisoners by shifts. Priests working 4 at a time at convex killing tables. I mean, they lay them on these tables and then spin. Carve out the heart, spin. Carve out the heart, spin. And the Spanish stopped it. Use one as document evidence, use the other as historical evidence. Nice. Okay. Now there's the other side. I just argued that he was shorter. Now let's argue that I'm taller, which is the last document. Look at this one. Neither disease nor starvation accounted. Neither disease nor starvation accounted for the Spaniards' stunning victory over the vastly larger Aztec forces, which can be credited to Spanish use of European-style disciplined shock combat and the employment of modern firepower.
Oh my God.
Awesome. Which is better, the Europeans or the natives? Why?
Because of their discipline, shock combat.
Technology. That's why the Europeans were better. Technology. I love technology, but not as much as you see. But I still love technology, always and forever. We met in a chat room, now our love's in bloom. Yes, I love the internet. Kip? That's right. Napoleon Dynamite. The greatest movie ever. It's on your test. All right. Okay. So, pick one of these documents as the document piece of evidence, and then now you can use the other two as historical evidence. Any questions at all about this? We're not done with this. We're going to revisit this in a minute, but I want us to put that away for now and retrieve, please, this, which should be highlighted piece of paper. Does anyone need a new copy? It's just fine. I have plenty. Anyone else?
Is it okay if I just go through the different sections and
I'm giving you non-smeared ones. Oh my God, these are awful. Anyone else? Okay. I will read the sentence. You tell me what you did with it. Ready? Some people argue that Pepper's atmosphere makes it a great restaurant, but Pepper's atmosphere leaves a lot to be desired. What is that? It's a topic sentence. It's a topic sentence, right? You're going to do the same thing, only you're going to be using Zin. Your sentence is going to go something like this. Zin or short or noun. Let's just say you don't agree with Zin's point of view. Some people argue that Zin's view of Columbus was, as a brutal mini Hitler, was accurate. But Zin's view is inaccurate. Period. Right? That's what you're going to be doing. All right, how about this one? Walter Matthau, a food critic who works for the St. Paul Pioneer Press, points out that the decor of Peppers is pleasant and inviting. Matthau argues that the location of the restaurant puts anyone in close range of all the Twin Cities might have to offer. Matthau page 1. What is that? That is document evidence. Now, where's the quote? There is no quote. Listen, I'm going to get verbal and visual confirmation that you've all heard from me for this. In your essay, which is in the mid-October, I do not want you to quote. I don't want a quote from any of these documents. Do not quote. I don't want you to quote. Don't quote. It is a colossal waste of time. I know what these documents say. I typed this bad boy. Don't quote. And now I wish to have visual and verbal confirmation that each of you heard me, starting with you. Go.
Don't quote. Don't quote. Don't quote.
Don't quote.
don't quote.
Do not quote.
Don't quote.
Don't quote.
But one of you's gonna.
Quote.
One of you's gonna do it. And if you do, I'm gonna write the word liar right on your essay because you're a liar.
No, some people like class.
Don't do it. Every year I've done this, I do the same thing, and then someone quotes, and then I write the word liar, scarlet letter.
Really?
That's right. Don't quote. It's a waste of time. Skip that part. If you wish to quote, do it in your head, and then start analyzing. Okay, skip the quote part. Next sentence. The decor of Peppers is subtle. Each booth has a painting of an Italian scene, whether it is the Duomo in Florence or the spires of St. Peter's in Rome. Soft music plays in the background, and the lighting is dim, just dim enough to soften the edges of a long day. The location, Woodbury, does put Peppers in the general vicinity of major events in the metro area. What is all of that? Yes, it is historical evidence, but it is also
Opinion analysis.
very good. Opinion analysis, well said.
Opinion analysis.
Oh, that's how you.
It's also analysis. You can mix the historical example with analysis. What makes analysis is where I see your judgment. I call it subtle. The decor is subtle. That's your judgment. You can't say historically it's subtle. What you can say is that there's music and there are pictures on the wall. That's historical evidence. When you attach value to it, when you say that's good or that's bad, that's analysis. You are attaching judgment to it. And those two things can mesh. Providing historical examples and your analysis can mesh. You can do it at the same time. You don't have to. You can do the historical evidence first and then render judgment later. Or you can mesh. The creative writers mesh. Some of you are there and some of you aren't. You're all welcome in this room. Okay? Look what he does next. However, Matthew is wrong to suggest that Pepper's restaurant and location makes it an ideal restaurant. What's going on here? What's going on here?
He's refuting it.
Refuting it. He's refuting it. We know who he believes to be the winner. The other one, Amate. Well, he does synthesize. Yeah, you're right. If a family were in Los Angeles for a Disney World vacation, that family would be silly to go to a suburb to eat at a restaurant when there are plenty of good choices right next to the theme park. That's synthesis. I'm saying, well, what if they were in Los Angeles? That's synthesis. You do it once. Trying to argue that Woodbury is an ideal location ignores the fact that there are other restaurant choices much, much closer to the Twin Cities, including downtown venues. That is historical evidence that you are also using as a rejection of the argument being made here. When you walk in the door tomorrow, you're gonna have time to do this in class. You have 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes left, right?
We have 10 minutes.
What?
We have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, very good. I want you to find the 3 headings that are all in capital letters. One of them is called Columbus. The second one is called European Justification for Colonization. We scratched this one. So scratch out the one called European Relationship to Native Americans. Scratch that one. Instead, you now have 4 potentially useful pieces of historical evidence. There they are. There are interesting stories here. Use them. Use them. So that would make the third one Native versus European culture. So your 3 choices are Columbus, good or bad, European justification for colonization, Zinn's argument that it was selfishly motivated, Schreier and Allen's argument that it was selflessly motivated, gold or religion, which one? And then the third one, which one is superior? Zinn's argument that the natives were superior / the Europeans were inferior, and Schreier and Allen's argument that actually the Europeans were superior, the natives were inferior. Okay, as far as culture. You got to pick a winner. So you have 2 choices to make. One is, which 2 of the 3 are you going to write about? Columbus? Why'd they do it? Who's better? Pick 2 of the 3. When you walk in the door tomorrow, I should be able to go up and down and say, all right, which 2 are you doing? Which 2 are you doing? I should be able to go up and down the aisle, okay? So be ready for that question. Which 2 of the 3 topics are you going to write about? And then question number 2, who's the winner? Which one? And please, please, please do not say, well, I agree with Zinn for this one and Schreier and Allen. Nope. Sweep. It's 2-0. Which one do you agree with? Okay? There's one other step here. How many of you right now could answer those 2 questions? Like right now, you could do it. Okay, about half of us. All right. So I will ask those 2 questions. And of course, you can change your mind. Of course you can. Okay? But for those of you who are going to side with Zinn, Zinn's your winner. Schweikert and Allen is your loser. You need 4 Zinn historical examples. 2 for your first topic and 2 for your second topic. You follow me? You need 2 from Schweikert and Allen. 1 for your first topic and 1 for your second topic. It should look like this. 2 for Zinn for topic number 1, 1 for Schweikert and Allen for topic number 1. 2 for Zinn for topic number 2, 1 for Schweikert and Allen for topic number 2. Or it should look like this. 2 from Schweikert and Allen for topic number 1, 1 topic from Zinn for topic number 1. 2 historical examples for Schweikert and Allen, topic number 2, 1 historical example from Zinn for topic
6
number
total.
2. 6 total.
Whichever one you side with, you get 2 and 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah.
Yeah. You get 2 good and like 2 agree.
2 from the historian you agree with.
For every 2
1
is
from
bad.
the historian you disagree with. Where are you going to find them? That document packet has a lot.
That piece of paper that you can make a packet that was all stories.
Very good. All those handouts, a lot. Your book, Gilga. Which, by the way, the rule is you have to do that when you say that word. Gilga. It's part of the language. Just try and say that word without doing that. You can't. Say that word.
Google.
Noonie. She is officially my favorite. You are my favorite.
Google.
I heard what you said. Very good. I understand now.
And guess what he's gonna do when she gets home today?
Watch this little scene.
And then she's gonna send it.
Everyone,
to the chat.
this is my new favorite
We had a
person
group
right there.
chat for CIS and
You
I
told me
sent
this already.
all the videos to them. And I put it on
Oh my God, she's the biggest.
I know no one cares, but I care.
Well, then don't put
You
it.
should add me to the group chat.
Any question on what I want you to have done when you walk in the door tomorrow? I didn't say you have to have your historical examples, although I do recommend you start getting on that if you haven't.
Yeah, buddy.
Get her going. Yes, sir.
What do they do?
The paper.
Well, ultimately, really, it's not due until October the 12th.
That's Liv's birthday.
Okay. I'm not going to give you a summative score by a date earlier than that if you haven't. This class is assuming that you're big boys and girls and that, I mean, it's a college class. It is a college class, so it's up to you to
Oh, we're writing the
do the
paper
work.
together.
Ooh.
You're not helping.
Oh, I'm helping. I've been helping since day one, haven't I?
The order.
Oh, I will. Yes, I
What
will.
we did in World and Conflict.
No, I'm not doing that.
No, not that much, but like it'll help.
I will help you, yes, but you're writing the bad boy.
No, World and Conflict, that was a good
Like,
class.
hold our hand.
You wrote the.
I wrote it.
You wrote the.
You wrote the paper.
Sounds like we've had enough. All right, so you
Here.
can relax for 5 minutes.
Your fruits.
Oh, I think so.
I'm going.